I started my journey in astrophotography stacking my images using DSS. But I've switched to ASTAP, and this video is really just going to show you all the different reasons why I choose ASTAP now over DSS. I primarily do most of my imaging narrowband, which is a little ironic because I'm standing here next to my one-shot color cool camera and, you know, a DSLR. But first we're going to talk about DSLRs, mirrorless cameras, and why ASTAP is absolutely the better choice of the two. And oh, one more quick thing. ASTAP, you can use ASTAP on a Raspberry Pi, on Linux, on the Mac, and on the PC. DSS is only available on Windows, I believe, maybe Linux, which is kind of a shame. Now, most of you start astrophotography using like a mirrorless camera or a DSLR. And one of the unfortunate things about these types of cameras is that they don't have the ability to control the temperature of the sensor. Now this guy right here, this is also a 4/3 sensor. Same as my mirrorless camera over here, the only one. But it has a Peltier cooler that's attached directly to the sensor itself. And then it has a big cooling grate. And this allows us to get the sensor to a temperature and hold it there throughout the night. With a mirrorless camera, you don't have this advantage. However, in the EXIF data for the files, virtually every camera that I've ever used actually records its temperature, because that's one of the things that's built into a sensor itself, is the ability to measure its own temperature. And ASTAP has the ability to use this data in a way that is incredible, okay? And DSS doesn't give you any option like this. And actually, I don't think there's any piece of software out there that will do this. It allows you to sync to your lights, your dark frames, based on their temperature. Now, like, here's two different nights, okay? Let's say one night I went out and I captured some light frames, and those light frames were, the first 3 of them were 11 degrees Celsius, and then the next 6 were 10 degrees Celsius, and then I had 19 at 9 degrees Celsius, and then finally we finished out the night with 41 of them taken at 8 degrees Celsius. That's what the sensor itself recorded the temperature as. You know, stored in the EXIF data of the file. ASTAP can read this, and it can organize and group all of your light frames by their temperature. But it can also do the same thing with your darks. Now, a second night I went out and I took all these dark frames throughout the entire night, basically. I just set the camera in my garage with an intervalometer and just let it record darks all night long. And as the night got cooler and cooler and cooler, I recorded a variety of different temperatures. We started out at 13 degrees Celsius, and then 12 degrees Celsius, and then 11 degrees Celsius, and we got 41 frames at 10 degrees Celsius, 50 frames at 9 degrees Celsius, and finally 63 frames at 8 degrees Celsius, kind of in the morning. Now, what ASTAP can do is you can point it towards a library that you can create of dark frames, and then it will take all of your dark frames that were of the correct temperature and it will stack it with these, and then it will take all your 9 degrees Celsius dark frames and it will stack them with your 9 degrees Celsius lights. Same thing with your 10 degrees Celsius dark frames and light frames, and also your 11 degrees Celsius dark frames and light frames. And then these up here will just simply be ignored. And so essentially you get perfect, absolute perfect dark frame calibration using ASTAP, something that DSS doesn't do. It gives you the ability to kind of have the same quality dark frame subtraction as you would as if you had a cooled camera, which is pretty cool. So we're over here at my workbench where I put all my gear together. This is one of my mono cameras, and one of the things that a lot of people are kind of afraid to get into mono and narrowband imaging for is simply the fact that they don't want to have to deal with the processing. Because with DSS, you have to take all of your, let's say all of your red filtered images, and you have to stack them separately. And then you have to take all your green filtered images and stack those together. And then you have to take all your blue images and you have to stack those together. With ASTAP, you don't have to do any of that. As a matter of fact, stacking with ASTAP is as easy as if you were stacking with a one-shot color camera. And as a matter of fact, it makes me feel like my mono cameras here are in fact one-shot color cameras, because the processing and stacking side of things is so seamless. Now, let's go back to the whiteboard and I'll kind of show you a graph of a very complicated imaging session that I did and how ASTAP just makes this incredibly simple and allows you to stack an enormous project very easily. So this right here, this is a project that I've been working on for I think almost 3 months now. I've been working on an elephant's trunk nebula shot, which I've captured boatloads of data on because I did it a couple years ago, and I want to really outdo myself this time. But in the process of capturing this data, I've used a ton of different settings. These are my light frames, all these frames right here in this column. As you can see, I've got frames that I've captured at 0 gain, at 139 gain, which is the unity gain of my camera, and even some at 300 gain. And yes, there was this random bug in ZWO's ASI software that for some reason set my gain to 50 one night. I had some light frames captured at 50 gain. Yeah, and I've got oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur at -10°C. I've got frames captured oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur at -20°C. And I've got some oxygen, hydrogen, sulfur frames captured at -10°C, but 300 gain. So yeah, there's a big plethora of different types of images here that are done using different settings. Now, all of these different types of settings, though, will kind of reveal subtle different gradations in the picture, in the end result. Now, doing this in DSS would mean that I would have to stack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different times. I would have to go stack stuff 10 different times. Okay, I would have 10 different tabs open. ASTAP will do all of this in one shot. So basically, we're looking at, let's see here, here's our oxygen frames. We've got, those are at 10°C and they're at 0 gain. So it will take these dark frames and it will sync them with those. And then it will take my flat frames for my oxygen filter, which are taken at the same gain, which is 0 gain. That's this group right here. And it will take those and sync those flats with those darks to those light frames. Now when we get down here to our hydrogen filtered shots taken at -10°C, it will take, let's see here, we've got these guys right here. These are, no wait, no. These guys right here, which are taken at -10°C, 0 gain. Okay, it'll sync those up. And then it will use our hydrogen flats taken at 0 gain and sync those, right? There's going to be a lot of lines in this board by the time I'm done. We'll skip down a little ways here. So here's our sulfur. Once again, we're using the same dark frames. And then now we're going to use our sulfur flats and sync those without those light frames. Then here's our 139 unity gain pictures, which are taken, let's see here, 139, these are taken at -20°C. It's going to be these darks right here. So we'll just draw lines to all 3 of these. And then of course our oxygen taken at 139, we need to find, here's our flats taken at 139° gain. And it's going to take oxygen and sync them with this, hydrogen and sync them with these light frames, sulfur and sync those flats with those light frames. Now I do actually have, now this here's my random set of 50 gain here that was kind of because of a screw up. Well, I took some flats with that filter and ASTAP will look at those from my database and sync them with those light frames. And then the same thing here. Now these here 300 gain guys, I actually don't have any darks for this particular setup. I'm gonna have to go back and take some before I completely round out and finish this project, which is fine. I mean, I can just take those in the daytime, you know, just put the camera in the garage and let it do its thing. But I do have flats, okay? So ASTAP would find these flats, which are taken at 300 gain with those filters, and it will start syncing all of those together. And then down here at the bottom, we'll have our combined SHO image, you know, sulfur, hydrogen, and oxygen all stacked together. All of these different temperatures, all these different gain settings will all be combined into one image, and I'll be able to export that as either a FITS file or a 32-bit TIFF file and then go stretch it as I please in Photoshop, which is my next step in my processing, my post-processing. So that's why I love ASTAP. It does this. It makes stacking an enormously complicated narrowband image, which normally my images are not this complicated. Typically they're just like one set taken at one temperature with one gain setting, but this project I've kind of gone overboard with anyways. But yeah, it makes narrowband imaging with a mono camera and stacking them and processing them just as easy as if you were shooting with a one-shot color camera. So that's why I love ASTAP, and if you haven't tried ASTAP, you should go try it. It's actually got a fantastic noise algorithm in it that, I don't know, it just, when it stacks images, it produces a less noisy image than just about any other piece of software out there, barring PixInsight, which is obviously, I think it's about 280 bucks. All right, and ASTAP is free. That's another reason why I love ASTAP. Hope you go try it.